Alright, let's get it started. A little bit of a break. It's weird that we're not getting any oil pressure yet. Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and today is finally the day where we get to see if the new engine fires up in my daily driven XJ6. I've had a lot of late evenings out here. Last time you saw it, I just lifted the engine into place and it was sitting on the engine mounts, but there's a lot that I did after that. Transmission mount, drive shaft, everything back there, you know, shifter cable, and then a lot in the engine bay. So today's plan is there are a couple things left to do. I need to set the timing statically. I like to do that because then, I mean, you know the timing is pretty much correct and it should fire up. We're going to do that. We're going to fill the coolant system, look for leaks, prime up the carbs, check that it has oil pressure before we fire it up. But let me show you guys what everything looks like right now. So as you can see, some progress has been made. Radiator's in, oil cooler, all of that. Carbs are on, of course. All the coolant lines in the back are on. I had to do some modifications in some places because I am using a Series 1 inlet manifold, which is pretty much exactly the same as the Series 2 one, just a few differences. And here is one of the differences. So on a later Series 2 manifold, this is a 90 degree and the coolant hose to the heater valve goes like that. However, I could not get this out of here. How much I even tried, it did not want to budge. So modified it so it runs across here, sort of like a Series 1 and over here. But there's good space around everywhere, so that should not be a problem. Carbs are in place. This top cover, of course, is in place. I'll be using this one now temporarily, and then I have one from a V12 that doesn't have this part because I will not be using the Series 3 or Series 2 preheater from the exhaust over there just because it won't work with these cam covers. So I will be using a Series 1 style filter, air filter housing up here, which gets air in here about. Leave this for now, and then when it's a little bit warmer, I can restore and paint. The other one's too cold to paint right now. But the water pump is on there now, the one I had on the old engine. New gasket, of course. All the electrics are back on. Loom that goes over here down to there. Vacuum lines are plugged in. I have also plugged that one. There's an extra vacuum line back here on this manifold. I don't need that one, so that one is plumbed. Battery's on a charge. And yeah, let's have a look at the timing down here. I'll set up a light and I'll show you how I easily set static timing on these distributors, which is the Series 3 electronic ignition one, which was also available on some Series 2s. I like to set static timing whenever possible. Of course, we'll adjust the timing later when it's running. That just maximizes your chances of getting it to fire up quickly, because that's really what you want. You don't want to have to mess around with things. Knowing that your timing is correct and you have spark, if you have issues with it firing up, you know it will be carb issues. So at least that's one thing out of the way. So this car, as you know, is a little bit special. It's a Series 1 engine with early Series 2 carbs, a Series 3 transmission, and a Series 3 ignition system. It's a very good electronic ignition system, so I'm not going to replace it. And as you see here, you have this tooth wheel with 6 teeth, and there is a sensor here, like a Hall effect sensor. And when it rotates past that one, there's a little lump on it right there in the middle. That is when it triggers a spark. So what I have done before I put the radiator on, I turned the engine over. I checked a couple things. I checked with a screwdriver that 0 on the crankshaft dampener is actually top dead center. And it is. And you check that on cylinder 6. So I did check that. Then I set this to 8 degrees, which is the static timing. And I've made sure that this is loose. So there is an adjustment bolt down there. There's also one here for more rougher adjustments. So I had to actually move that one a little bit first. And as I said, you see that little lump there. So I need to set that right there. So that's where I would set it for static timing, pointing down here where cylinder 6 is. I would tighten down that bolt, and then we know that this part is ready to go. I've looked over everything again. I don't think I've forgotten anything, but you never know. So let's just move on and we'll see what happens. It's time for fluids now. So we're going to start with the coolant. And if this stuff looks very dark, it's because I'm using Evans waterless coolant. The donor car was run on it. It's life of the engine coolant, or life of the car coolant really. So I collected all of it when I drained it, and I have thoroughly flushed and removed all the water from the radiator and the heater core. So this should be good. It should be a fun experiment. It means that there will be no pressure really in the coolant system. It has a higher boiling point, and I believe it will run a little warmer as well, but because it doesn't boil or create any hot spots, that should not be an issue. And it's really good on an engine like this with dissimilar metals. So I'll start by pouring in all of this. I'll check for leaks. If there are none, I'll fill up the rest of the system, and then oh yeah, and then we gotta fill up the power steering as well because I had that off. And then we're gonna remove the spark plugs, spin the engine over, and see if we have any oil pressure. Coolant system is pretty much full right now. Of course, it will need to, get bled when it runs. I had 2 small leaks, but they were sorted by just loosening up the hose clamp and moving it a little bit and tightening again. So that seems good. Also, if that were to continue, I think once it warms up, hoses do seat into place, and then they'll probably end up sealing because it was leak free before, and the hoses are less than 2 years old, so I decided to reuse them. And yeah, just removing all of the spark plugs now. I'm going to put a little bit of oil down the cylinders just for some extra lubrication, and then we're just gonna turn it on, see that we get power to the starter, see that it cranks over, and I want to see that it has oil pressure, not because it's a freshly built engine or anything. I mean, it ran great in the donor car, but just because I put on a different oil filter house. I put on a Series 3 oil filter housing that was in this car with an oil cooler, and I'm not really sure of how that thing routes oil. Sometimes, maybe it needs to fill the oil cooler before it gets oil pressure, or maybe it needs to, I don't know, at least needs to usually fill the filter. So you don't want to start the engine up completely dry. Also, I am running the oil that was in the engine when I got it. We're going to run that for the startup procedures, and then yeah, before we go for drive, we'll change it. So I'm just using a little bit, tiny bits of ATF, just because that will also clean it up a little bit, because it was last couple times this ran, it was just moved around a bit and it ran on full choke all the time. This will free up everything a little bit. But I think that's it. Let us see if we have any life. Connect up the battery. Hopefully this thing cranks over. Just double check that everything is out of the way. The distributor is disabled. I've unplugged the cable to the electronic ignition. These are just out of the way. Fan spins freely. We'll reconnect the battery. I asked some questions about this in the first video. People said, you had to disconnect the battery? Yes, I had. It's a quick disconnect. It has to return quite a couple turns before it goes in. But, just a core turn that does disconnect. Works really well. I have one in all my cars. It's nice to be able to disconnect it quickly. But let's go inside and see if we have any oil pressure. And I'll film that with a separate camera so you guys can see in the car as well. Okay, let's see what happens. And good thing is we're getting oil light as well. I did replace that, or there was an oil warning light on this car. The one on my old one was definitely broken, and I couldn't get out, it was seized. So let's see if it cranks over. Okay, it cranks. Let's see if it builds oil pressure over there. Alright, let's give a starter a little bit of a break. It's weird that we're not getting any oil pressure yet. I'm gonna go out and just see if there are any leaks or anything else weird going on. Alright, I went around, saw no leaks, and actually cranked it one more time just to see. And I wasn't filming then, and it actually got some pressure then. So the light went out, and I thought the gauge go out. So let's see if that happens again. That goes out, and we're building oil pressure. Good, let's connect the last things and hopefully fire this thing up. Alright, the garage door is open. I did prime the carbs now. Plug in the fuel pump just checked, and everything is nice and dry. The pump stopped clicking. Everything's full. Can't smell any fuel. Reconnected the distributor and put in the spark plugs again, of course, and the HT leads. So if I haven't done anything majorly wrong, this thing should fire into life. It's definitely not tuned or anything, but it hopefully should at least fire into life, and we'll see. Fingers crossed. I really hope this works. I can't wait to be able to go out and drive this thing again. And here we go. There is an exhaust leak over here. Don't really know exactly what it's about. That's hot. Very hard to tell exactly where it's coming from. Maybe it is from down there. But we're running. Doesn't seem to be leaking anything. Charging. Oil pressure is good. It's charging, running. Alright, I'm gonna turn it off now and see if I can figure out where that leak might be coming from. It lives! The daily driven XJ6 is up and running again. Engine sounds really good despite the exhaust leak over there. I just think I need to tighten the manifold, those nuts there a bit with new seals there. I didn't want to tighten too much because the studs are not in the greatest shape. I couldn't get the old ones out. I really tried with a lot of heat. I have new ones, so if I can't sort that out, I'll have to swap over the manifolds from the other engine, which really isn't that big of a deal. But it runs, has oil pressure, no leaks I can see so far, charging, not making any funny sounds. I know I talked to the friend of mine that had the engine before, and that we had a little bit of a noisy timing chain, so we're gonna check that and tighten it a bit. So we will do that. Just you know, it's a good thing to pull there and clean that little screen as well. Just tighten that a tiny bit. But I am so happy now, so ecstatic, And thank you so much, you guys, for following along the journeys with this car. It's been close to 2 years now. I think it was right after Christmas 2 years ago that I announced this car. So I think I've owned it for pretty much 2 years now. And now we're on second engine, which hopefully this one will last a long, long time. It's been rebuilt and it's run really, really well in my friend's car. And I think it will run really well in this one as well. So I hope you like this video. Give a thumbs up if you have. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Join me on the next time with this car where we will put the winter tires on and roll it out of here. I'll have to fix a couple things before that, like the exhaust leak and a few more things, maybe an oil change. And then we'll roll out of here, take it for a test drive, and see how it does. Anyways, until next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.